Welcome in, Braves Today, bravestoday.com. He is Kyle. I am Ben. And Kyle, all stars are being all stars in a most important time, which is down the stretch to close out the playoffs with that magic number now reaching two.
Yeah, all stars are showing as all stars, and I know we talked about Orlando Arcia, Ronald Acuna Jr., Matt Olson, those guys. Three of the all stars is making a big difference. But a guy that we didn't really talk about, Bryce Elder, another guy that it was an all
Mhm.
star that's making a huge difference. 12-4, 3.38 ERA. He's doing a great job this year.
Elder, and of course, Riley. Riley has not been as hot as of late, but he's done some little things to get the job done. You saw it in the third game of the series against the Phillies, which was a double play that ended up getting him out of the 10th after Raziel Iglesias blew a save, and so our save opportunity. So, all these guys are stepping up, and Ozzy, you take away some of his injuries. I know that Braves Today did an article and we talked about maybe his defense sitting there, but he's a type guy that you still want as a leader on the field, in the clubhouse, and in the dugout at all times.
Yeah, we mentioned that in the Discord. We were talking about Ozzy. His impact is great on the field, but his impact may be even more off the field as far as chemistry wise and as far as confidence level, especially with a guy like Ronald Acuna. And the way they gel, they play so well together. And you can go back and look at the stats from last year for Ronald. When Ozzy got hurt, he was kind of in the funk for a little while.
Yeah. You mentioned Ronald, and another number, another milestone, another reason to put a notch on his belt as far as the MVP is concerned. I know that everybody's still kind of going back and forth between he and Mookie. Here's the funny part about that is people like us that follow baseball, Mookie's still having a good year, but he's not in the conversation every single time he steps to the plate like somebody like Acuna is for the Braves. And I think that's even proven in this Phillies series is he's getting the Chipper Jones treatment. He's getting the boos, man. The boo birds are coming out on the road.
That's how you know you're great when you play against a rival team and you're getting the boo birds. And like you said, that was the first thing I thought of was this is just adding to the MVP resume that he's putting up because we've never had a 40-70 player and we're really close to having one and there may never be one again as far as we know, or Cooney could just do it next year. That's just the talent level that he has and what separates him from everyone else.
And that's funny because he surpassed Dale Murphy on the most runs scored list, by a Brave, and that's in the modern era, if they say. I don't know when you start referring to 1900 exactly how modern that is, since neither you nor I nor our great grandparents were around during that time, but
Yeah.
that's considered the quote unquote modern era. You mentioned Arcia, and I think that one thing that goes unnoticed, he's had some untimely maybe an error here or two, especially his last couple of series. But for the most part, solid defensively. And he seems like a guy that when he comes up to the plate towards the end of the game, you even saw it in game 3 against the Phillies. He rode one all the way to the warning track, and he just seems to step up. Eddie Rosario. I mean, we've talked about Rosario's defensive woes and Pilar probably being a little better, but still, those two guys, as far as being at the plate, that's who you want, especially at the bottom of your lineup. They're just as dangerous as some of the guys at the top.
That's right. And, we talked about Pilar and how he really needed some more at bats heading into the
Mm.
postseason because he's one of those guys that we're going to need a bench asset. We're going to need a bat off of the bench to come in and try to give us a Jock Peterson esque moment.
Yeah.
And Kevin Pilar is a guy that I believe could probably get that done. In Arcia, there was a lot of question marks around the shortstop position going into this year. And boy, has he surpassed every single thing that we have thought of him, just like our first baseman, and I'll let you do that.
Yeah, we'll get to him here in a little bit because I was talking about that magic number earlier and it getting smaller and smaller by the day. Of course, we're down to 2, as we've already mentioned. As soon as this pod drops, it could be even better by the time the next pod drops on Friday. We shall see. So home field is now what we're looking for next because it seems like between now and the end of the season, we should grab the 2. The Braves should, as far as the division is concerned. Plans for the next week, probably, I'm assuming it, may not get the final game of the series against Philly, but with the next 2 series coming up with the Marlins and then hopefully back home against the Phillies, at least some sort of win or Philly loss will take place. And what are the, being under 20 games, 18 now, I think is where we are, 17. and remaining in the season. Any idea, like load management wise, what you think these guys? We talked about that a little bit last time, but now it's becoming more evident. You mentioning Pilar right there, and you see some other guys that we've seen come off the bench here as of late that I honestly had kind of forgotten that were even going to be out there, but used them for base running and everything else. So will we see some load management coming down the stretch these last couple of weeks, or let some of these guys like Acuna, like Olsen, at least give them a couple of chances to pad some stats?
Yeah, another guy that you talk about as far as bench assets, Forrest Wall. His speed is going to be an asset as it has been in the past two games that we've gone to extra innings in
Mm-hmm.
against the Phillies. He scored in both of them just because of how quick he is, and that's going to help us in the playoffs. And as far as load management is concerned, I know a lot of these guys want to play every single day. Like Acuna has said that he wants to play every day, and I'm sure Skipper Brian Snicker would honor that, but I'm sure that he wants to give these guys a rest before we go into the playoffs. But again, you don't want these guys to get into a slump because they get cold.
Yeah, I've seen it before where we've done this where guys may be chasing something. Chipper did one year. He was chasing something. I forgot what it was. It may have been home run, maybe been third base home runs, surpassing Bob Horner or something like that. And for the Braves, and what they did is they basically gave him two ABs, and after his two ABs, or after the starter was pulled, it was like, sorry, you get your chance during the first part of the game, and then after that, we got to make sure you don't try to do something dumb like leg out a ground ball and pull something or run it. If you're Ronald, he loves to go back hard on fly balls against the wall. So you don't want him knocking knees against a fence post or, a wrist bending in the wrong direction and that hurting him at the plate. He could still be in the field, but it would hurt him as far as ABs are concerned. So I don't know what Snit's plan is. I know that he said we'll cross that bridge when we get there. He does all that, and he likes to live in the moment rather than the future. But it will be interesting to see how they are able to kind of get some time split between those guys and get some of those guys like the Pilars, like the Walls, some chances. Because even though we've used him on the bases, he's a late sub. He's going to have to be in the field. So I know they want to get him some efforts out there somewhere in left if need be, or even in center if they have to move somebody over.
And Lopez as well. You can put him on that list. But
Yeah.
a beautiful thing we have now that we didn't have back then when Chipper was playing is now the National League has a DH. So
Mm.
you can throw him out there as a DH. They won't have to play on defense, and they can just try to rake up stats on offense. That could help a little bit, but still, there's always running that risk.
Yeah, exactly. Let me pause real quick for a break so we can thank our sponsor, and that's one of our newest sponsors, and it couldn't be better fit is Ford Stokes, founder and president of Active Wealth, host of Active Wealth Show AM 920, The Answer, the author of the informative book Annuity 360, new primary sponsor, and the best part about it, Ford wants to give each and every Brave fan a free gift. His book, Annuity 360. All you got to do is go to annuity360.net, provide your contact information. Ford's going to be sending you a complimentary copy of the book absolutely free. Incredible opportunity for you to gain insight into protecting and growing your hard-earned wealth. Now, it's important to note Ford and his team at Active Wealth, they specialize in assisting pre-retirees and retirees. Ford and his team are eager to assist you in making the most of your financial resources. Again, for that book and to get in touch with those guys, go to annuity360.net. That's annuity360.net. Olsen sounded as if the home run record is not really that much of a thing for him, as he's now tied it with 51. And I'm sure he'll probably break it within the next. I don't know. He could go on one of those stretches where he goes a week and a half without hitting one, but I don't see that happening because he seems to be heating up again. It seems, based on his post-game comments over the last couple of games, he's all about October. He's not really worried about the individual records at this point. And I know some people say he's been a team guy, but he genuinely comes across as a guy that's that way.
Yeah, and I think it kind of goes back to him playing at Oakland for so many years. He was the big fish in a small pond over in Oakland. He was the guy that led in stats every single year, led in homers, led in average. So he's used to doing that every single year for Oakland, but he never won anything. He never was able to make the playoffs and make a run and win a World Series. And that is the biggest draw to playing in the major leagues is you want to win a World Series. And that is what Matt Olson's focus is. He would love to get the home run record, I'm sure, but right now he wants to win in October.
I've said it over and over, and I put that in the notes that I sent to you. He has absolutely exceeded any of my expectations. We went back and even looked at some of the first of the year pods, and I was talking to Zach Blackerby and I was talking to Lindsay Crosby about it. And I said, give me a guy that hits 260 with 30 home runs. That's all I need over at first base, because everybody was talking about replacing Freddie. I was like, don't need to replace Freddie. Just give me a 260 guy with 30 home runs. So that means he can hit for power, and he's still going to be out there and get on base every 2.5 times, or 2.5 out of every 10 times that he gets to the plate. He has done that above and beyond as far as this season is concerned.
Yeah, he kind of upped the ante as he's hitting 281 with 51 homers and 128 RBIs and 94 walks to go along with that. He's seeing the ball really well. He's playing pretty well at first. Sometimes it looks like, well, how did he win a Gold Glove? And then other times it's like, yeah, I see why he did it. But he has been great at first base, and there is no replacing Freddie. Freddie still. If you look at the MVP voting, as you see, he's in the top 5. He and Matt Olson are neck and neck in that MVP voting. But Matt has come into his own this year as an Atlanta Brave, and it's been a beautiful thing to watch.
Looks like Kyle Wright may be here to stay. No plans start in Miami, but he is right now, as far as projections are concerned. If you look on the Braves website, you look on ESPN's website, you look on any baseball website, it looks like he's projected to go game 1 against the Phillies when they return home from Miami at Truist.
Yeah, I think he's still kind of getting his feet wet in the major leagues. He looked good in some starts in Gwinnett, but then he was on and off again like he has been for his whole Braves career. Last year was really the first year that he was just on it every single time he went out there. He has been kind of an ebbs and flows type of pitcher over his career, and he's shown that this year once again as he struggled a little bit. But I feel like once he gets back in the routine we talked about this last week, you get back in the major league routine, you're not getting sent down, called back up, and having all that travel and all that stress on your mind. Once he's back in Atlanta with the major league squad, he can practice there and hang out and get back into his normal routine of what he had been doing in Atlanta before he got injured. And I think that'll help him a lot, especially coming back home.
I think it's invaluable what they can do. And Lindsay called that too, by the way, called him getting that opening start against the Phillies whenever the Braves return home so he can perform in front of his hometown crowd. But you talk about being with the team, and we mentioned this last time, but I think it just goes beyond like the 4 walls of a classroom when you think what he can do sitting in the dugout and talking to these guys that have seen these guys play every day and that have seen players that they faced players. You can read what you want on a scouting report. Sometimes a pitcher will say, look, I know the scouting report says this, but that cutter that I threw him over and over and over, he could not touch last time. So, maybe they try something of that nature. Same thing with your catchers. People forget he hasn't been with his catchers. I mean, I know he threw with d'Arnaud last year, but he hadn't really thrown with Murphy. So if he gets stuck with Murph behind the plate, it's going to be a whole lot better on him spending that everyday time, having some bullpen sessions, throwing to him and kind of hearing Murphy finding out about him too. Like, what do you like? What do you like in this set? What do you like in a 1-2 count? What do you like in a full count? Are you comfortable throwing something off speed when you do have a full count instead of going fastball up or fastball in? So I think that kind of stuff goes so much further. Like you said, getting that routine every day instead of hopping up and down and playing with, 6 different catchers and 3 different third basemen and 3 different middle infielders because they're moving them around trying to find guys to get to the next level. So just the familiarity has got to be something good for him.
Yeah, you've got to get a read on a different person pretty much every single day when you're playing in Gwinnett or at any minor league level. And as you said, being able to be in the dugout on an off day and you could chop it up with a Charlie Morton or a Max Fried, these guys that have so much experience that can help you a lot because they face these hitters over and over again. And then you have d'Arnaud and Sean Murphy, 2 of the best catchers in the game. Sean Murphy, one of the best defensive catchers, period. And coming from Oakland, like Matt Olson, another guy that was a leader over in Oakland and was known for his defensive prowess, not really for what he did at the plate. And I'm sure he has tips and tricks that he can give to Kyle Wright. And as their chemistry starts to grow, you'll see that battery get better.
See, and it goes back to what we were talking about at the beginning, all-stars. I mean, there is not a team in the league, National League, American League, that have 2 catchers that are all-stars. And so I think that is just absolutely phenomenal that those guys have got that to bring to the table. With that said, possible playoff scenario. Braves going to win the division, so they're going to get that pass there and face those wild card winners or wild card winner. Looking at Cubs or Phils possibly. What are you thinking?
I'm sick of the Phillies. I don't want to play the Phillies anymore. We've seen enough of them this year. We play them enough every single year. Get them out. Get them
Mm.
out of here. I'll play the Cubs. Give me Wrigley Field. Give me Dansby Swanson. I want them over the Phillies because the Phillies is a trap game. It's a trap series, a trap game. They knocked us out last year. They beat up on Spencer Strider last year, and hopefully Strider takes it to them tomorrow. But
Yeah, I
I
will
do
say.
not want to see the Phillies again.
No, and I say the same thing. I mean, I don't really want either one of them. I kind of wish somebody would have come from behind and made a charge and been able to make their way into that. But the Cubs, I mean, just in the division that they're playing in, it's going to allow them to grab probably something. So I really want I want the Phillies, but I don't want the Phillies. I don't want the Phillies because of what we've seen in this series, where they can do just like the Braves and they can put up a lot of runs in very few innings, and they can do it against any pitcher, a starter, middle reliever, your closer. They don't seem to be afraid to face anybody. So it's one of those, it's kind of pick your poison. The one thing I don't want to do, and I know the Braves won't do this because they're pros and they know how this goes and they know how the playoffs work. I don't want everybody looking ahead thinking, what are we going to do against LA? I don't want that. I mean, take care of business at hand. Try to put it down as quickly as possible and go ahead and get out of it. And that way they can be successful and make their way possibly against LA. Because it looks like we're probably going to play LA if we move on and then get a chance at the World Series. So right now it's all about wrapping up the division and securing that home field advantage. And then hopefully some guys can get a couple of ABs and sit the bench for a while after that.
Yeah, it goes back to what Crosby wrote about a week or so ago. Do you want to be number one in the National League or number two in the National League? Because you may have a more favorable matchup being the number two seed instead of the number one seed. But we're not playing for second place. We're playing to be the number one seed and have that home field advantage all throughout playoffs. And I wrote about the home field advantage and how pivotal it is for the Braves, and the numbers are staggering. If you go back and look at the 2021 season alone, we were 7-1 at home in the playoffs and 4-4 on the road. So you really want to be in front of your home fans and have that crowd jumping as they do every single time we play. And it's a huge advantage, and we're not just going to give that up.
Hopefully those guys that were in the comments last time that said home field doesn't mean anything will go back and read that article so they can see 7-1 versus 4-4.
Yeah,
and then they can get back with us and say the home field doesn't make a big deal.
Facebook comments know more than we do. You know that.
Absolutely love it. So he is Kyle. I am Ben. He said he's got an article that's going to be coming out Braves today. It's going to talk about that magic number. You'll see a little insight of what we were talking about. Again, we appreciate you guys listening. Kyle, as always, brother, I greatly appreciate it.
Yeah, man.